This month, in the spirit of giving, I'll be bringing you impactful stories of how people have turned personal adversity into acts of generosity and service. Welcome to Success Reimagined. I am Dr. Amna Shabir, your host on this journey to thrive at the intersection of ambition and wellness. In every episode, I'll help you challenge outdated definitions of success, discover practical tools and strategies for growth without compromising your well being. I am so glad you've joined me. Let's reimagine what's possible together. Today's guest is Richard Averitte, a deeply committed, nonprofit leader and volunteer currently serving as executive director for the American Cancer Society in Central and Eastern North Carolina. Richard describes himself as a career volunteer, having poured years into causes before stepping into nonprofit leadership. His leadership in ACS spans many roles, from board service to Relay for Life training to regional advocacy, always with hands in the work, not just overseeing it. I also serve as an area board member for the American Cancer Society along with Richard, so I'm honored to bring this conversation to you. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your service to our organization.
Richard, please share your journey and why we should all be closely listening to it.
Sure. Well, I always tell people I was a career volunteer kid. You know, when I was growing up, I was the kid who had who started the Earth Fair thing and for Earth Day. And in college, I was a big brother, little brother, and and a program called Partners of Wake County, very similar to a Big Brother program. And I always been that person because my mom always used to tell me, it's like, I don't care who you marry, I don't care what you do, I don't care where you ever be, but the day you stop serving, that's the day you stop taking my name. And that I still hold that very close to my heart. And so again, I was always a volunteer in some capacity. And about 10 years ago, I started getting involved in board service. And I was fascinated by this because it seemed like a lot of nonprofit leaders shared a lot of the same qualities what I was in my current role. At the time, I was in the restaurant business and marketing business. And if you know any about those businesses, you know that you wear a lot of hats and you're constantly reprioritizing and pushing and pulling. And I thought, well, I'd love to maybe learn more about this as a career. So I started interviewing at different nonprofits, and it's funny. I kept on getting the same answer: you don't have enough experience. And I felt like a college grad or something. I was like, wait a minute, I may not have experience in this role or this nonprofit world, but I have experience. Not just life. And I kept on getting that. And I have a mentor here in town named Dallas Bonavita. She runs a nonprofit called Note in the Pocket. And I almost threw in the towel. And I was almost going to stay in for profit. And I asked Dallas, I said, Dallas, I said, I guess I'm just going to be, marketing restaurants the rest of my life. And she said, Richard, can you read a P&L? Can you lead people? Can you fundraise? Then you can do this work. And my next interview was with the American Cancer Society. And in that interview, sold myself, so to speak, but also told my why. My mother was a breast cancer victim. She passed away 30 years ago. She actually passed on July 4th, and we later rest July 6th on my birthday. So that was always my why. And my mother was a breast cancer thriver. And so when I say that is during that 12 years she fought breast cancer, I don't think about the wigs. I don't think about the chemotherapy. I think about things she did do. And that was my inspiration. I told that story, and that was 3 years ago in October of 2022. And here I am now as executive director. And I hope it's my last job, or I hope one day I may be working for you because we've cured cancer.
What an incredible share, Richard. Thank you for taking us down the memory lane with you. What an honor what a wonderful way to honor your mom's memory by the
Appreciate
work that you continue to do.
That's my why. Yeah. I mean, I think about her and, in those 30 years, we've made some incredible impacts. I mean, since 1994, we've seen a 25% decrease in fatalities in cancer. On the flip side of that, we've also noticed some disturbing trends. Our cancer patients are getting younger. So, back when my mom was alive, it was 45 years old to get a colonoscopy. Now we're asking people around under 40 to start doing that, or at least start a cadence of screening. And, I always tell people at an event, take your phone out, write a note, get screened. And for those with you adult children, start that cadence, start that process where they know. And especially for men, I mean, as a male, I know we're not the best about taking care of ourselves and self-care and a doctor. And it's important that we start that cadence of cancer screening.
Absolutely. There have been tremendous developments, tremendous progress, but the stigma really surrounding screening and prevention stays there. I'm a physician and we're largely really bad patients. I know I'm not the greatest. Once I get myself in the door, it's because I'm thinking about everybody else but myself. And so it's such an important reminder for everyone listening to pause and please go and get your age appropriate cancer screening done. Have that conversation instead of hiding behind things. Please talk about this. So talking a little bit about the just cancer care advocacy, what are some of the hurdles you have faced in cancer care advocacy as you work with the American Cancer Society?
Well, that's a great question. So, starting off, the American Cancer Society, our mission is very simple: in cancer as we know it for everyone. And we do that three ways. First of all, is cancer research. We've been around since 1913, and we are the largest funder of cancer research behind the US government. We have supported over 50 Nobel Prize winners. And then the patient support aspect, which is everything from preventive screening to our 1-800 number that anyone can call at any time, talk about their cancer journey, and even locally to our Hope Lodge, which is a 20-room facility in Greenville, North Carolina that allows cancer patients and their caregivers to stay free or no charge while they're being treated at ECU Health. And finally, the advocacy, which is our volunteers and staff talking to lawmakers and make sure our cancer patients have rights. Example, we were the largest lobbyist group to help push Medicaid expansion in North Carolina 2 years ago. So we have those three pillars: research, advocacy, and patient support. And each of them have their own hurdles, so to speak. And, when I say that, what we just talked about was screening. We have a number of disparities in the cancer space. I always talk about North Carolina specifically. If you take out Raleigh and Charlotte, North Carolina is basically, it's a rural state. So, and also there's the fact that disparities in the Black and brown communities. Black women are 50% more likely to pass from breast cancer than white women. So we want to ensure these rural and underserved communities have equal access to screening and treatment. I mean, and that's a challenge we go through. I'm in development, right? And then just combating donor fatigue in a very busy landscape. I mean, you're hit from phone or email or commercials or videos, all kinds of different things. And how do you separate yourself? One challenge we have is we're a large brand, American Cancer Society, been around since 1913. And people wonder, well, how do you keep it local? And, that donor fatigue is sometimes involved with just flipping over ACS. I don't know what they do, but they're big. But, you know, I always tell people that I could tell you a number of different ways how it affects you locally. Something we're still, believe it or not, trying to rebuild this kind of post-pandemic world we live in. I mean, I know it's been, through almost 3 years now, but some of our community events took a major blow during COVID. We have a volunteer program called Road to Recovery, where
Mm.
volunteers drive cancer patients through their cancer treatments. Well, that was eliminated during COVID. So we're still rebuilding that. We've had great success, but the reality is it's not as busy, or it's not what it was. And we're still in the process of rebuilding that. And then again, just securing sustainable funding amid competing nonprofits and competing and amid the world we live in today. But, I always, I used to be in the restaurant business, as I say, and I tell my team that my old boss used to tell me, you can't control Washington, Wall Street, or the weather, and you can only control your four walls. And I kind of that same ideology here. Like, cancer doesn't care who's elected. Cancer doesn't care that there's a hurricane. Cancer doesn't care that what Wall Street's doing today. And we have to figure out, how can we raise funds to end this terrible disease? And this year, our theme is Be Like Water. Sure you're familiar with Bruce Lee. He was a, martial artist, movie star, but he was also a philosopher. He also always said was be like water. Water can take the shape of a teapot. It can be a powerful way to thin. And that's what our team needs to do. We need to be like water, and we need to adjust and adapt to our environment because, again, cancer is not going to stop and we can't stop.
Thank you, Richard. I really appreciated how you summarized this journey so beautifully, and you hit on major important points from the work that ACS is doing on a national level to work that is being done on a regional level. And I love the example of the Hope Lodge. And I'm just going to pause there for just a second before we move forward and double click on it. For folks that are in the audience and they don't know what a Hope Lodge is, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So our Hope Lodge, we have a number of Hope Lodges in the country. Ours is in Greenville, North Carolina. Is about a mile from ECU, the Cancer Center. And again, this is a 20-person home, basic 20-room home, excuse me, with a galley kitchen and a library where cancer patients can stay while they're being treated at ECU Cancer Center at no charge for as long as they want. And they usually connect through a social worker. And if you can imagine, again, just, I've got to go through treatment. That's a emotional, and then just the mental fatigue of how am I going to pay? Where am I going to stay? And just to have that alleviated is incredible. And, it's also a place for respite for the caregivers, where they can just find some time alone in the library. They can talk with other caregivers. And it's very interesting how the community that's built there. And, I had one person tell me there, you have your cancer buddies, and it's a cancer buddy group, and it's a group that you never wanna be in, but the people you meet, you establish for a lifetime. And again, it's this huge galley kitchen that volunteer groups will come in and cook meals for. Musicians will come in and play music to entertain the guests. We have a monthly program called Empower, where different groups like chair massage person, a health and wellness, yoga, and all other things just to empower our Hope Lodge residents with healthy lifestyle choices. Again, it's a wonderful, wonderful program. And to your point we talked about earlier is truly something impactful, something you can put your hands on literally. And this is our work in action. And one of our board members, Dr. Rob, what her and her husband helped founded it, and she's just a wonderful resource, and we're so blessed to have her. I always encourage folks to come visit Hope Lodge if you want to see hope in action. And we have the bell in there when they ring the bell when they beat cancer, and it's truly incredible.
I have visited that Hope Locks that you're talking about, and it's definitely a very inspiring space to be in. What a wonderful testament to the power of giving and seeing that in action. There's nothing better than
So,
when you go to a space and you can see everything you're contributing, that how does that actually show up in the community. So I appreciate you taking the big name of American Cancer Society and breaking it down
yeah.
into like bite-sized information so that we know that when somebody is donating to the cancer cause, like what is it translating into. And these were just some of the examples that we're giving a high level view here.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and that's a hurdle I run into a lot. It's like, you're so big, and what about the smaller nonprofits? There are a lot of wonderful nonprofits out there, and there are a lot who are in our space. And I think a separation point for us is we're the soup to nuts. So from the research to cancer prevention to in the cancer journey, we can't capture everything. But the 1-800 number, I talk about a lot, and that we can go global with that or local. When I say that is, people call the 1-800 number and talk about their cancer journey, or a caregiver can. And it's interesting that phone line gets the most action between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. And the thought process is maybe you've been diagnosed during an afternoon doctor's visit and you wake up in the middle of the night, oh my God, I've got cancer. I need to talk to somebody. Over 200 languages. But as far as, the people that call, it could be, I'm going to Duke tomorrow for my first chemotherapy. What do I wear? Or, last year, I'm in Boone, North Carolina, and Hurricane Helene just washed away where I get chemo. Where do I go? 40% of cancer patients suffer from food insecurity. Is there some place I could, help fill that gap? So That's what our 1-800 number does, and sometimes just a caregiver saying, "Can I just talk to somebody?" My son's been diagnosed with cancer, and my wife doesn't, have the emotional ability right now to talk about it. Can I talk with you about it?
Wow. I'm trying to come up with the right words to respond to that incredible resource that's
Isn't that a credible resource? I mean, anything.
yeah.
Some people just talk to talk, and they just, we have an event in Wilmington called Shuck Cancer, and we had a mission speaker talk about their journey. She said she called the 1-800 night before because she was nervous about talking about cancer, and it is truly amazing resource. And what's really, I found this out last week. I'm ashamed to say it, but I think it's just amazing. If you call in and let's say, "Hey, my husband got has been diagnosed with cancer," and you call back a week later, they'll have all your information. "Oh, hi, Amna, how are you? Got the notes here that your husband is what else can we do?" So you don't have to call back in the 1-800 number and explain the whole situation again and again, because you know how it is if you're a customer somewhere and you have to talk to somebody different, but they have all your files there and your records, so you can pick up and they can follow up or where you are in your journey.
That is a tremendous support. That is an excellent way to continue to support somebody at a very difficult time of life. And to your point earlier, Richard, like American Cancer Society is comprehensive in the care that it's trying to create in the advocacy efforts from research,
Yes.
everything. And we are better together. It's wonderful. Like at the end of the day, however you're choosing to support and advance the care for ending cancer in whatever capacity you can, I think that's incredible. So the first step is to give, and then we're sharing information on helping individuals make informed decisions, and just know that while it sounds big, this is what it breaks down into. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this before I move on to the next question?
Well, you talk about getting involved, and we always tell people that, time, talent, and treasure, right? And, as far as the volunteers, volunteering is a privilege of time, and we treasure any time volunteers give us because I mean, I know that, you have your personal life and your professional life and your volunteer life. We value that time you give us, and we want volunteerism, right? And when I say that is, we almost create customizable volunteer experiences, and you do what you like to do. I mean, you could be in finance and play with numbers all day and say, "You know what? I wanna go behind a table and talk to folks about ACS." Or somebody could say, I work in social media and graphics. Can I donate that?" The time, talent, and treasure. And, I think people who volunteer with us gravitate towards that because we're a volunteer-led, staff-supported organization. We run it really lean. We cover half a state, and I have a team of 11. And we bend, 81 cent of every dollar goes back to our mission. And for organization our size, I'll gladly hang my hat on that. And we're very proud of that. And we are good stewards of our donors' money. And we really feel that as a volunteer-led staff support organization, we need to be that. Our volunteers are so wonderful. And I could tell you about a volunteer who's been with us for 40 years, or another one's been with us for 4 months. But we each try to each experience, we want to be joyful. We want to feel good about what they do. And it's amazing that a lot of our staff, I would say probably half my staff were volunteers before they started. So that's just a testament, I think, to our organization.
Volunteerism has been shown to improve our mental, emotional well-being. And in the
100%.
world, we just feel so rushed and pressed for time. So I appreciate you making volunteerism tangible and doable, breaking it down and helping us all be creative in the ways that we can contribute. I think a big hurdle, and this is a space that I was coming from personally in full disclosure is this I constantly used to feel time poor and feel pushed in all kinds of directions, but then realizing how can I contribute and realizing that when you do contribute, this is not for the other humans. This is for me. This makes me feel good.
That's right. That's right.
This is what ties into my health and my well being. And I've also noticed this as I've been on this journey of understanding perfectionism and toxic achievement. And I shared the story about my own daughter. The other day, I was looking at how when we just step away and look at the focus that we are putting on our children. I'm not a parenting expert, by the way. I always let everyone know I will never call myself that. And I will never give parents advice because I'm just trying to survive here. But one thing I have noticed is we are constantly focused on having our children outshine in academia. That's a very specific goal that we have. But we take away the community efforts that they can do, how they can show up as volunteers, how we can show up volunteering as a family. And I see you do that amazingly in beautiful ways with your family. I see you post about that. And that missing part, that component can be such a critical way whenever I've had my children present and we're volunteering together. They feel so validated. They feel tied, they're tied to a higher purpose. And I can see how they're so happy and they feel like they matter.
Percent. And I feel like, well, first of all, everyone has a gift, right? I think about our co-chair of our board, mutual friend Berta. Berta kind of poor mouths herself. It's like, gosh, I don't know what I'm doing helping. I was like, Berta, I can't tell how many people you've introduced me to for our mission. Or if I need a caterer for an event, she's the first person I call and she'll immediately have somebody. That's a gift that not every board members have. The gift that you give, we have a young professionals network group who asked about social media training. I immediately thought about you and you gladly donated your time. Of all our board members, you're the expert in that. So we each have a gift. And I 100% agree about the sense of community. I really feel like the younger generation really yearns for that beyond social media or video. And I always tell people, especially younger people, especially if you're dating, don't worry about apps and bars. If you want to really meet some quality people, volunteer, get involved. That's how you meet people. And it's amazing. And I used to love it when I was a kid where I'd have, my school friends, my sports friends, my comic book friends, and my church friends, and it was really cool sometimes when those lines crossed, and meet different people. But I feel like having in an adult life, having a volunteer life is important. And sometimes those lines may intercross with your business or personal, your family. But my volunteer family is important to me, right? And and that can not only with ACS, but with the other organizations I may serve on or in the past. Like I used to volunteer at a place at the table. It's a Eat What You Can cafe in downtown Raleigh. And I still see a lot of volunteers. My friend Michael, who we talked about records and music, but we always had that connection. That's how we met. And I think our community, our world yearns for that right now, that connection through something good, as you said. And I just think it makes us better humans. And again, it's not about how much you have or how much you want, but just everyone has a different skill set, a different time commitment, but the time you give is just invaluable.
Beautiful. And the other thing that I am reminded of as you were talking was the loneliness epidemic that we find
Oh,
ourselves in. And so as you're talking about community, and I love that dating advice you snuck in there. That's really
yeah. And no, it's true. There is a I read about it a lot. It really, especially with young men, it really disturbs me, and I worry about that. But but if it just I really think that's the solution is volunteering and establishing those community, and you find like-minded individuals, and you find joy from it. I mean, just like a sense of accomplishment and pride, and I just think that if I was 30 years younger and never dropped into a new community, that's the first thing I would do. I'd find a volunteer opportunity, find something I'm passionate about, and dial into it.
excellent advice, Richard. I am going to invite you to share with our listeners now, as you've gone through this journey of being a volunteer in many different roles and being a dad and showing up as an entrepreneur and showing up in your work. How have you reimagined success for yourself in this chapter of your life?
Well, I can go high level. I could say cure cancer. Be one. I'll be honest with you. My first year, I suffered from a little imposter syndrome, right? Because here I am, restaurant marketing guy into something new. But then I realized, number one, a lot of these skills translate. Number two, I had a lot of support from friends and family. But most importantly, I had the support from an incredible team. My team has an average tenure of 12 years with the American Cancer Society. And beyond being wonderful ACS employees and team members, they're wonderful human beings. and they are incredible. And the conversations I have with them are, two questions I always ask on every one-on-one. What's giving you heartburn? And if you had a magic wand, what would you use it for? And or how can I support you? Because they all know what to do. I've always had this philosophy of find the best people, put them in a position for success and get the heck out of the way. These people, I found these people already. They were already here. And my role is to support them and make sure they're successful. So I guess long way to answer your question, reimagining success for me is success for them. And what do they want? And I make sure every quarter to check in, what's the next step look like for you? And some people are like, I'm fine right here. Some people say, I have this vision of doing this. So success for me is the success of the team and the organization and even our region. We're Central and Eastern North Carolina. My counterparts in Western North Carolina and South Carolina, in Kentucky, in Florida, the Southeast, we're very tight and we talk a lot. And then I love to continue this. The Triangle community is a very tight knit nonprofit community, and I firmly believe we share the philosophy of making the pie bigger for everybody instead of bigger piece of the pie. That continue to see us work together, can you see it lift each other up? To me, that would be a win for all of us.
Thank you for your time today, Richard, and for sharing your wonderful insights with us and encouraging every one of us to show up in the community as a volunteer, whatever capacity that we can. What is one way our listeners can support the amazing work the American Cancer Society is doing?
Well, first of all, thank you again for your time. And I wanted to share again, like I mentioned earlier, encourage everyone get screened for cancer. Start that cadence of and just doctors checkups, everything. Just take care of yourself. I know some people in a relationship may hold the emotional labor, right? But to your point, you can't forget about yourself. It's important to get that. Go to cancer.org. You can find a number of ways to get involved. I always tell people that the time, child, and treasure, what you have to give, but what's meaningful to you. I mean, I could give you statistics all day. $50 a night could support someone at the Hope Lodge. I could do things like that, but we would appreciate people's audience, their time, talents they bring, and their treasure if they can give, and a gift that's meaningful to them. But and I also stress that again, 81 cents of every dollar goes to our mission, and we're very proud of that. And we're good stewards of our dollar, and we like to be good stewards of our customers. When I say that is, I think there's a bad habit of nonprofits. They come around with their hat in their hand once a year, but we like to communicate on a monthly basis, share impact reports and how their dollars are going to work. So bottom line, go to cancer.org, find out how to get involved. Me locally, I'm sure you can share my information. I'd love to talk to anybody how to get involved on a local level or a national level.
Thank you, Richard. And we'll absolutely have all the links in the show notes. Giving isn't just good for others, it strengthens our own well being, bringing more meaning, connection, and even better health. Thank you for joining me for this special conversation in our November series on the power of giving. My hope is that these stories remind you that even in the face of adversity, generosity has the power to heal, uplift, and create change. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. Just a quick reminder, while I am a physician, I'm not your physician, and nothing in this podcast is medical advice or any kind of professional advice. Everything shared here is based on my personal experiences, and the views expressed are entirely my own. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love for you to rate, review, subscribe, and share the show with anyone who might need a little inspiration to redefine their own version of success. I'll see you next time. Until then, keep reimagining success one small step at a time.